Good morning, and welcome to another episode of Old Men in Chairs. You know, I really hadn't planned to do another video this week. I just did the Kodak Black one, and I've got Tom McDonald coming out on Friday. But when I saw this new video, we can't even call it a video, when I saw the new movie from Falling in Reverse, Prequel, I was totally blown away. And for those of you who are new to the channel, I don't really do first-time reactions because my brain doesn't work that way. I can't assimilate even the simplest songs, and this is one of the most complex songs and videos that I've ever seen. This is my second venture into Falling in Reverse. I did the country song that he did with the big fat guy all my life. I did the same thing with that video. I watched it multiple times. I watched multiple reactions. And yet, even then, after I did my own video and I was watching it, other reactions and watching the video over more and more, I realized there's a lot I had missed in that video as well. And so I'm sure the same is going to be true about this one. There is so much packed into this video. The music, theatrical, surround sound, it really should be shown in a movie theater with the proper equipment. Orchestrated to the max. Singing, unbelievable. Acting, that's what people don't mention about Ronnie Radke, is he's a hell of an actor. He's like a superhero. But the storyline, I'm still piecing that together. But one thing I can say for sure, the lyrics of this song really hit home with the world we're living in today. And that's where I'm going to put most of the emphasis in this analysis. I'm sure you've all seen this video before. If you haven't, stop right now and go watch it all the way through on your own. But for those of you who like to watch reactions, I hope to point out some things that maybe others may have missed the first time through, and who can blame them, because there is so much packed in here. I have such admiration for the job that these reactors are able to do first time through. I could never do it.
Dear diary, I've been searching for a higher me. I'm in the sky in the pilot seat, trying to stop my mind from spiraling, and that's irony. I'm just looking for a resolution. I just want to be a better human, but it's hard when everybody's acting stupid.
Who cannot relate to that statement? Everyone's acting stupid. And also the idea that he's the pilot up in the air, but he's trying to keep his mind from spiraling out of control. A lot of people can probably relate to that, trying to hang on, keep that flight in the air. Very difficult in today's world. Notice the crown. Some people think it's a reference to the crown of thorns Jesus wore on the cross, but I'm not sure. The crown disappears as soon as it's crowned. It appears that he's being made the leader of this society, some sort of futuristic society. And you'll see that after this crowning ceremony, he goes out to address a huge throng of people.
Pardon me if that came off rude. I just have a bad attitude with the world and not just with you. It's the side effects of abuse. I admit I'm a little strange. I don't think that I'll ever change. I survived a whole life of pain. You could say I escaped my fate.
For those who know Ronnie's history, he was actually in a group called Escape the Fate. And things didn't work out with that group. There was a falling out. And so here he's saying, you know, many years later, after enjoying tremendous success, that he escaped his fate. A little bit of a backhand slap at, I guess, the members of his former group.
Never change. I survived a whole life of pain. You could say I escaped my fate. I'm a cynical, egotistical, unpredictable, hardened criminal, and I can be a little hypocritical, but I'll admit it straight to your face. I'm unbreakable, irreplaceable, undeniably inspirational. I use
let's just talk about that transition. He's building to a crescendo. He pumps his fist in the air. The music is rising, 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 and then boom, right down to almost silence. And we have this long shot of him walking alone through a large hallway. Most people of a religious orientation are immediately struck by the image of the cross there. And it is a kind of foreshadowing of what's going to happen later on in the video. I don't think necessarily this is a recreation of the story of Jesus. I think more it's a case of the story of what happens to anyone who gets out of line with the ruling power in their society.
Dear diary, I just had another wild dream. I was in a world that admired me, and when I woke up, I was smiling.
He woke up, he was smiling, which was unusual. I know there's so many cinematic references. Some people have mentioned Dune, other people mentioned Star Wars. To me, this scene reminds me of Raiders of the Lost Ark, I believe, when the lead character is in the bazaar, walking through the bazaar and surrounded by third world type people.
Irony, that's irony. You talk a lot, but you don't even know me. I'm just hoping that my testimony will inspire y'all to stop acting phony. Pardon me if that came off weird. I don't mean to be mean, I swear. I have been through a lot this year. I just want to make a few things clear. I don't like it when people hate behind my back and not to my face. Nowadays it just feels so fake, so I'll cut the grass to expose the snakes.
Wow. He's going to cut the grass to expose the snakes. All the people who have been talking trash about Ronnie for most of his career. And I'm sure there's a large number of the hardcore heavy metal fans who are like, no, Ronnie, don't change. Don't leave heavy metal behind. Don't take up rap, for God's sakes. Don't go into country. That's always true of great artists. Ricky Nelson had the song Garden Party. They want to hear the old hits. They don't want to hear, how the artist has grown. The other thing, of course, obvious in this situation is that the crowd that is following him starts to mimic his every move. He raises his hand. They all raise their hands. That must be what it feels like, when you've reached his level of stardom, is that there are so many wannabe fans who want to be just like you and dress like you and talk like you. And it's a form of hero worship. It's not necessarily a good thing. And what he's going to try to do here in the next, what I call the bridge. We've had two verses, and then we go into the bridge here shortly, which to me is the most powerful part of the song, because in the bridge, he really lays down how he feels about things. And I'm going to analyze that very, very closely.
It's impossible. You don't want to see the diabolical side of me that never stops is volatile. So I suggest you stay in your lane. I'm unapologetic. You know where it's headed. I will never ever let up off the pedal. I got the spirit of every warrior in me. Ever back the fuck up, get out my face.
Back the fuck up and get out of my face. Can you say it any clearer? Stay in your lane. Now here, this is where he starts in on what I'm calling the bridge. You enslave the labor. So he's talking about all the wage slaves in the world who just live from paycheck to paycheck, can never have any hope of rising above the position that they started out in life. And I'm going to break this down very, very closely. I'm not unaware that there's this incredible movie going on in front of my eyes, but to me, the lyrics really speak to the situation we're living in. For those of you who maybe are not that familiar with the farming world, you may not recognize that those ear tags that those women are wearing are pretty much identical to the tags that they put on dairy cattle, so they can tell one cattle from another. It's an incredibly powerful image, and what it's saying is that women in this case, and mankind in general, are nothing but a number. They're just cogs in a machine. And you praise the fascist. So many people have been brainwashed to the point. It's a form of Stockholm syndrome, isn't it? Where prisoners tend to mimic the beliefs of their captors. And it's a known human quality. And people that are caught in a fascist system will praise their leaders, praise their fascists, because basically they're afraid if they don't do that, what might happen to them.
To labor and you praise the fascists. You kiss the hand that takes half in taxes, faking outrage and being seen. A generation with no self-esteem.
You kiss the hand that takes half your taxes, half your money. You have to. If you don't kiss the hand, you won't have any money at all. He's talking about social media here, that you think that just being seen is enough. That if you just get enough views, enough likes, that you're actually accomplishing something, when you're not. You're just caught up in that machine that they built to distract you. You're being controlled in almost every way.
Half in taxes, faking outrage and being seen. A generation with no self-esteem.
A generation with no self-esteem. Who's he talking about? He's talking about our current younger generation. They only get their esteem if they do well on social media. We know this. We know that there's so much unhappiness among the young people because they cannot live up to the image that they see on Instagram or other social media of all the other successful people of their generation, not realizing that that's not a real situation. Those people are just as lacking in self-esteem as anyone else, or they wouldn't be wasting all their time trying to make themselves look beautiful with all types of plastic surgery, filters that they put on their images, lighting, makeup. At the heart of it, they do all that because they have no self-esteem. Well, they're looking to be accepted. Again, he said, they think outrage online is actually doing something. No, it's what we call the armchair revolutionary. They don't get out of their chair. They might post a revolutionary meme. They might make a revolutionary comment. But do they get out of their chair? Do they go out on the street? Do they hold up a protest sign? Do they go to a rally? 95% of people don't. I experienced this with the whole pandemic. It was a very small percentage of people that were willing to stand up and say, hey, wait a second, there's something wrong with this whole story. Why are you shutting down all these businesses? Don't you realize these businesses will never recover, that they'll be destroyed? It's ineffective as far as what it was supposed to do, stop the spread. It didn't stop any spreads. The virus is going to do what the virus does. That fell pretty much on deaf ears for years. I kept thinking, well, people will wake up. People will realize they're going down the long road. But no, they kept going for years. And then they were convinced that they had to take the vaccine or else they would all die. It's amazing what fear can do to people's perception. But in any case, Ronnie's got the answer. He's going to tell you right now what to do.
It's time to rise up and stand against them. Break the chains and finally see the vision. We're post-traumatic from a broken system. Follow me into the chaos engine.
Follow him into the chaos engine. It's time to stand up. It's time to realize we're living in a broken system. And all these symptoms that we have are post-traumatic syndrome from living in this broken system, which no one's allowed to even acknowledge. He's hitting the ball out of the park right here with these lyrics. I know everything else in this video is over the top fantastic, but to me, this little section right here, where he gives his critique of the problems of the world and how so few are willing to stand up, it's worth the whole song.
It's time to stand, it's time to fight. Don't be afraid to twist the knife. Your sacrifice to break the curse. Prepare to die, prepare to burn.
When do we hear that message nowadays? In the earlier generation, people heard the call, to go fight in this war or that war, and they were willing to give up their lives. Going back in this country, back to the Revolutionary War, people were willing to fight for the freedom to get out from under the tyranny of kings of England. But in the current generation, how often are you told you need to stand up and fight and be prepared to die? That's not a message that you're hearing very much of. If it's not worth dying for, what good is it? And don't be afraid to twist the knife. That's such an image, Not only should you stab the people, but when you get that knife in, just twist it a couple times, to do the maximum amount of damage. That's cruel, man. That's cruel. But what he's saying is, don't be afraid. You have to fight for for all it's worth to overcome this demonic system that we're living in.
To twist the knife, your sacrifice, to break the curse, prepare to die, prepare to burn. Abandon hope, it's not enough, cause all our gods abandon us. Your sacrifice, to break the curse, light the match, watch it burn.
From this point on, you have probably the most amazing scenes ever seen in a music video or ever seen on a screen anywhere. This next crucifixion scene is just unbelievably well executed. But before we get into that, why is he being cast out? He went from being the ruler, the leader, and now he's being cast out. He's being thrown up on the cross by the authorities behind the throne. And why? Because he dared to tell the truth. Because he dared to tell people they have to overthrow the system. And that's what happens to anyone who stands up against the system. They're going to be canceled in today's culture. They may not be crucified literally, but they're going to be crucified socially and economically if they dare to tell the truth and stand up.
Falls, the angels die. Let it burn from the start. When everything falls
Look at that. Now this reminds me so much of medieval art, where they thought in these terms about the story of Jesus and angels and devils and the struggle between darkness and light, good and bad. And here we see Ronnie trying to ascend up to the angels, trying to find the better part of himself and become more human, or maybe even divine. And look, the gathering army below that doesn't want him to escape, that's grasping at his feet, trying to pull him back down. This is something that if you took it out, printed it, framed it, belongs in a museum. It's so beautifully executed. And he says, "Why have you forsaken me?" Well, who else thought they were being forsaken? I believe that was Jesus on the cross himself. So obviously, there's a lot of Christian reference here. Is Ronnie saying that he's Jesus? No, I don't think so. If he did, that would be blasphemous. I don't think that's where he's going at all. But what he's saying is, what happened to Jesus could happen to any one of us. I want to go back to that beautiful singing he did at the beginning of this scene.
angels die. Let it burn from the start. When everything falls apart.
That line when he sings, "The angels die," and then his voice goes up, does this beautiful run. Anyone that thinks that Ronnie's just a heavy metal singer and he can't hit those notes, I present this as Exhibit A. He's an amazing singer. And when everything falls apart, is that where we're headed as a society, as a world? Is everything about to fall apart? It certainly seems that way, doesn't it? It seems like so much is going wrong in our world, and specifically in our country of America, that we are very close to seeing everything fall apart, if it hasn't already. Now notice on his hand, you can see the wound where the nail was driven through his hand as part of his crucifixion. Apparently, we're now somewhere in the future where he has maybe arisen. Maybe he was dead. He sure looked dead on that cross when the spirit left him. But now he's come back into an earthly form, just like Jesus was said to have done. And so we are past the crucifixion, and now we're into the resurrection. It's almost as if the power of his voice is causing everything to crumble. The giant statue crumbles, the walls come tumbling down, and he's screaming his ass off. It's almost like the noise that he's making with his voice is bringing the world to an end, and everything is falling apart. And that's why they call it the prequel, because apparently that suit of armor that he comes upon will later be seen in some of the other videos that have already been released. Watching the World Burn, I have seen. Now we have the backstory of how he got his superpowers and why he's doing what he's doing in some of the videos. Now what really needs to happen, these videos need to be combined into one movie. They're already mini movies. They need to be put into one large movie and then put in the theatrical release so we can watch them with our Dolby surround sound in a movie theater and really appreciate the power of this music and the power of this story. I haven't gone to a movie in probably 15 years in a theater, but I would go to see that. I would pay to see that. What does it all mean? I think it's just an allegory of our times, of all times. The person who sees and tells the truth is going to be persecuted and driven out of society and perhaps killed. And that's going on right now. You know, look around the world. Look what's going on in England and Germany and the United States and Canada and Australia. All the so-called civilized countries are going towards fascism and shutting down free speech and canceling anyone who dares to speak the truth. So Ronnie is that lone voice in the wilderness crying out, stand up, fight, don't give in, don't give up your rights, because you give them up, you never get them back. Thanks, Ronnie.